So you have to find the tools that make the process more efficient. It's not that you're changing the workflows, is that you're finding different ways to get to that same step, right? So for example, sourcing. We posted a role at one of the companies, 14,000 applicants over 1 week.
How many?
14,000 applicants in 1 week.
All right, let's do this. We are the Chad and Cheese Podcast. I'm your co-host, Joel Cheeseman. You know him as Chad Sowash. And we are here with Steve Bartel, CEO and founder of Gem, and Alla Mezhvinsky. Did I say that correctly?
That's perfect.
She is
He's
the
been
VP,
working on that. He's been working on
talent
that.
and workplace at Glean. Guys, welcome to HR's Most Dangerous Podcast.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks for having us. Good to be here.
Excellent. So right out of the gate, how in the hell did you get Gem.com?
Ooh, that's a good story.
Oh, got to hear that, because that is,
the
I
fun
mean,
ones.
And then we'll get into who the hell you are. But
All
we
right,
got to
so
ask the big
this
question
is the big
first.
question right out of the gate.
So who here has heard of us as Zen Sourcer?
As a Zen Sourcer, yes.
Did you know that?
Yes.
You remember
yes,
Zen Sourcer
yes.
days?
I remember.
That's bringing it way back. That was like 8 years
I remember
ago.
the transition. It was like, holy shit, how'd they get Gem?
Gem.com. Wow. All right. So we started with Zen Sourcer. I mean, the story goes way back to then because we were applying to YC.
And this is what year?
This is 2017.
Okay.
Summer of 2017. We're like, oh my gosh, we could apply to YC late if we get an application in the next 12 hours. And so we were looking at the application. It was like, well, we need a name. We need a website. We went on some sort of domain site and we started searching. We're like, oh man, like a lot of companies are naming their thing Zen these days. And so we looked for Zen Recruit, Zen Recruiter, and then they were all taken and we're like, oh, Zen Sourcer. Perfect. All right, so we have a name. But we knew that name would just get us started because
paint you into a corner.
Exactly. Long term, our vision was to become like an all-in-one recruiting platform, to become the Salesforce for recruiting. And we're actually like, basically there today. So I'm excited to talk more about that. But a few years in, we had just raised a Series A funding. And we're like, this is the perfect time to rebrand, because how do you get the word out about a rebrand? You pair it with a hot fundraise announcement, because otherwise nobody cares. Nobody cares when you're a Series A company and you're changing your name.
Yeah.
So raising a bunch of money from top tier investors was like the perfect time to get the word out. Then began the journey of trying to find Gem.com. I mean, I could go into the long story, but
Just let us know the check amount. That's good enough.
that's maybe the one thing I can't share.
Oh, boo.
But here's the one thing I can share.
Yes.
Normally, a company name like Gem.com would sell for $2 or $3 million.
Yeah.
3-letter word.
.com.
It's spellable. It's
Yes.
a .com.
Totally.
Yes.
$2 to $3 million.
No question.
When you're a Series A company, you don't have that kind of money.
No.
We did find a really creative way to structure a proposal, though. We framed it out almost like a lease on a house.
Did you
where-
offer up some stock
With
or
an
something,
option to
or
buy?
what?
No stock, but we gave a down payment,
Okay.
and then we structured the payments over 7 years.
You don't have a balloon payment though, right?
No balloon.
What's the balloon payment?
Oh, it all at the end.
Well, actually, we do.
There you-
So at the end of 7 years, we have the option to buy it for the remaining amount.
Oh, okay.
And we, first of all, we got it like way less than $2 million.
Yeah.
But we also got to space out the payments over 7 years, which is great for a startup from a cash flow perspective, because like either you make it and you go on to raise hundreds of millions, which we did,
Yeah.
or you
Or
don't,
you
and then
don't.
you give the domain back.
Yeah.
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 So that's the story.
Clever.
Can we do a quick intro? Because we forgot to
Of
say that
course,
some
but we
people-
got to get the listeners sucked
not
into the good
everyone
stories.
knows. Yeah,
first.
not everyone knows you guys. A lot of our listeners, viewers out there. Let's start with Alla. Just give us the elevator pitch on you and your experience and where you're coming from on a recruiting.
Yeah, absolutely.
side.
Happy to. So I'm currently the VP of Talent at and Workplace at Glean. I've just been there for about 7 weeks. Prior to that, I spent 15 years in hypergrowth companies. So I started my career at Zynga, then went on to Square, a couple of smaller startups, and most recently, I spent 6 years at Instacart. So that's my
a
quick
pretty
journey.
light resume.
Hello.
Just a
That's
little
pretty
bit.
light.
Jeez.
How did she make it onto the show? I don't know how she. All right,
It's been a
follow
fun
that. Follow
ride.
that.
Well, maybe the way I'll humble brag is Square, Instacart, Glean, all Gem customers. So thanks for being a Gem customer.
Very nice, very
so
nice.
I'm the
Loyal
founder,
Gem customer.
love to hear it. I'm the founder CEO of Gem. We've been building Gem for about 8 years. We've got thousands of customers. We partner with some of the best brands out there like Glean, Instacart, and Square, but also a bunch of Fortune 100s, companies like Walgreens, McKesson, Salesforce, Workday's own exec recruiting team uses Gem, and then a lot of the fastest, hottest, fastest growing AI companies. So Glean, of course, being one of them, Anthropic, Scale AI, the list goes on, and then most of the private tech companies as well.
So we're here live from the Gym booth. We're at the Unleash conference. I know we're barely into it, but what are some initial takeaways, things that have caught your attention? What's your sense on the show at this point?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think maybe to zoom out a little bit, I would say being in this industry for the past 15 years, in the last 5 to 6 years, I'm so incredibly proud of how much innovation has happened in this space. Like if I remember back in the day when I first started at Zynga, you had your ATS and you had spreadsheets and everything else in between was not really solved for. And it's just good to be here to see all of these different products out there. So much innovation happening, so much tooling that's accessible for both recruiting leaders, recruiters, sourcers, you name it. There's something for everyone. And so I think just being here and feeling that energy and seeing all of it is really great.
Steve?
Yeah, totally. I mean, every industry out there is going through unprecedented disruption. And so, of course, the talk of the town is AI and how that's changing recruiting. I really think that there's this dividing line that's being formed between the teams that are adopting AI and the ones that are being left behind, quite frankly. So there's a lot of talk about that. There's a lot of talk about replacing recruiters. My take is AI is not going to replace recruiters. It's going to enhance recruiters. And actually, what's going to happen is the ones that adopt AI, that become AI fluent, they're going to replace the recruiters that don't, right? So it's not about replacing recruiters. It's about the ones that adopt AI will be the ones for this new era. But, my favorite part about these conferences is like, wow, it's just so awesome to get to spend in-person time with folks from the industry, talk to our customers, talk to future customers, other folks from the industry. Yeah. That's why we all got into this profession in the first place, right? Is we're people. Most of us
love people most of the time.
Over 80% of you watching right now, you watch over and over. We know you do, but you haven't liked and you haven't subscribed. Let's do that. Let's do that now.
So you talk about it empowering and then also kind of like powering up recruiters, but aren't there stats around teams getting smaller?
Oh, yeah. That's why it's even more important. So recruiting teams are smaller than ever before. If you look at the data from 2021 to 2024, take the average customer from SMB to enterprise. Yeah. The average recruiting team has dropped from 29 to 24 over the last 3 years, but they're facing so much more work. So on average, recruiters are, per recruiter, owning 55% more job recs.
Yeah.
Applications have gone up nearly 3x. They're 2.7x per recruiter compared to 2021. And guess what? Here's the thing. Everybody knows they're getting more inbound. What people might not realize, they're feeling it, but they can't put a number to it, is it's taking 8 days longer to hire each role, and it's taking 43% more interviews to make one hire.
Ouch.
It's a perfect storm of smaller teams being asked to do a whole lot more. A lot of people are, especially people outside of the industry, they're looking at the industry and they're thinking, oh, like there's less hiring happening. Yeah. Recruiting teams must be having a good time.
Not so much.
Alla can attest, it's quite the opposite.
So talk about the squeeze, Alla. The teams are getting smaller. Recs are getting more applications. How do you balance that? Knowing that more than likely you're not going to get more resources. How do you actually balance into all of this?
Yeah, the word that I heard for the last 2 years especially is efficiency. You just have to figure out how to make that workflow more efficient for you. And so this is where
changed workflows?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
In
so many ways.
Many companies, they don't change workflows. They just continue to do it and they just push harder. And it's like you're going to break the system. So talk about how you you do that and how you get your teams to actually receive that well.
Yeah, absolutely. So adoption is a very big part. We were just talking about it, but so you have to find the tools that make the process more efficient. It's not that you're changing the workflows, is that you're finding different ways to get to that same step, right? So for example, sourcing. We posted a role, one of the companies, 14,000 applicants over 1 week.
How many?
14,000 applicants in 1 week. I don't care how many recruiters you have on the team.
Wow.
It is actually not efficient for them to go one by one by one by one trying to figure out which of the ones move forward and which ones don't.
But I thought AI was going to solve all that. We're going to AI everything. Is that not the case?
I mean, yes, but you also, these AI tools are new. And so there's a lot of like trust and, verify. And how do you really go about this? And did AI go and filter it in the right way? And so you still have to have a lot of oversight. But I think what's been interesting is trying that, right? You have to lean in and you have to try and figure out, okay, so let's set an AI tool, or let's do some AI filtering, or let's figure out how we can decrease that 14 to 5,000. And then that 5,000, what are some of the other knockout things that we could do, whether it's knockout questions or very specific things that you start to calibrate on a little bit more with your teams. And then you start to see, okay, actually the AI tool or the filtering that we use did work. So then the next time you lean into it more and you lean into it more and you start to trust it a little bit more. So those are the types of things that you end up leaning into. There's also technical assessments that are now automated, whether that's with Code Signal or, a couple of other different companies that come to mind.
Into the process.
It plugs into the process.
Nice.
You're no longer utilizing the hiring manager's time or the technical interviewer's time or the recruiter's time. You're able to get through some of those stages in a little bit more of an automated, consistent way. And then you add the human touch to it. Then you add all the other layers like the on-site, like the hiring manager screen, which are still really important. And I don't want to say never, but like I don't see them going away in a short period of time, like eventually maybe.
Yeah.
But right now it's how do you automate some of the administrative work, like reviewing resumes, like doing some of the initial screening, so that recruiters have the time to actually focus and give candidates a good experience. So I think that's what you're leaning into, is like just automating the admin work that you can automate.
Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, I mean, I think you nailed it on the head. There's so much talk. If you just like go on LinkedIn and scroll for like a few posts, you're going to see everybody talking about how candidate experience has gone downhill. But the thing that nobody's talking about is recruiter experience.
Yeah.
Recruiter experience has gone way downhill, and we can't solve candidate experience unless we first solve recruiter experience. Because when you're drowning in 15,000 applicants for a single role, how are you going to get back to everyone? How are you going to provide a personalized touch?
Yeah.
And so, automating the busy work, automating the manual, tedious work, the parts of the job that frankly kind of suck.
Yeah, the scheduling, the manual stuff.
Exactly, and then that frees up teams to provide a better candidate experience and be more strategic to the rest of the organization. And you talked about using AI to automate inbound. One of our customers, Zillow, just rolled that out. They're saving 75% time on inbound app review.
Is this external sourcing only? Is it a hybrid between external and internal in their database that they have?
So that's for just their applications, using AI to rank their applications.
Just ranking. Okay.
And the cool thing about that is not only do they save 75% of their time, but also, like we were just talking about, there's no way every single applicant can get a look. And now whether you're applicant number 8 or 800, you get the same fair chance to get reviewed by an actual recruiter if you've got the right qualifications for the job.
Gotcha.
And so on the app review side, they're saving 75% time. On the sourcing side, they're actually also using us for sourcing. I know that we were just rolling that out at Instacart before you switched to Glean, but their results there are even more astounding. I think they're seeing a 58% match rate on folks that Gem AI sourcing finds for them.
Wow.
So you think about that. Compare that to going manually on LinkedIn one by one, where you might reach out to like 1 in 10 or 2 in 10. Now with like these new AI models that take natural language, you can just say, here are the 5 to 10 things I care about. Start ranking my inbound, take those same criteria, apply them to all the public profiles out there on the internet.
Yeah.
And get a short list of 200 people to review every week.
Well, it's important though, because the job description is sucked for how long now? To be able to get those things, those requirements that are actually what you need. And it's almost like a change in thought process. And I almost think that like this whole replumbing of the system is making TA rethink and then also challenge hiring managers. Do you really need this, and this? Is that not happening in broad base? Are you guys seeing that?
It needs to happen. So
Yeah.
the first thing that needs to happen is folks need to get more specific about what they're looking for.
Right.
And actually that helps with the inbound problem right out of the gate, because
Right.
if you post a more specific job description, you're going to get more specific candidates that are actually a good fit for that role instead of
Yeah.
like generic inbound.
Yeah.
Now, the other reason that's helpful is because the way these new AI models work is you can take in natural language. And so if you have a very specific job description, you can pass that into the AI and it can actually produce remarkable results based on natural language. And one of the things that we build in, though, because like not every team is going to really nail the job description and make it super specific, even though we'd love them to, we build the ability to ingest an intake doc or like a hiring manager spot doc or whatever you want to call it. There's like 20 different names for this doc.
Gotcha.
It's the internal doc
Uh-huh.
that you have with your hiring manager where you've collaborated with them on requirements.
Right.
Sometimes these are things that you wouldn't want to post on your career site, but if you put those in, the AI can get even more specific about matching.
And we're hearing a lot of horror stories. Lazy apply, deep fakes, job seekers getting pretty savvy around shotgunning, machine gunning their resume to companies. You have a lot of companies using Gem. You get a lot of applications. Are you guys seeing this? Is the hype real, and how are you fighting it? Or is it a lot of hot air?
Yeah, I mean, the stat you mentioned, which I think is like double the applicants, we felt it. 2024, Instacart got 400,000 applicants. That was
What was that?
400,000
400,000
applicants in 1 year. And that was, I want to say, almost close to double from previous years. So smaller recruiting teams, more applicants on the market. If you don't bridge that gap with some efficiencies in the process, unless you're able to hire large teams, which honestly still is inefficient. Like, you don't want your teams, even if they're large, to be inefficient. But one of the things that I think you guys do really well, on top of some of the things we've discussed, is that analytics and insights piece. And something that I've worked really hard over the last few years is making sure that not just I'm able to get data and deliver that to our leaders, to our hiring managers, but every recruiter is actually able to understand that data, utilize that data, be able to send quarterly, monthly business reviews to their managers proactively, so they're understanding what's happening in the pipeline. So I'll give you an example. We had a hiring manager that was saying, "Oh, it's taking too long to fill this rec. What's going on? We're not seeing too many candidates end up at the on-site stage." And for whatever reason, like it's so easy to say, "Well, recruiting is not doing something."
Oh, of
right.
course,
of course, right? It's always
it's not
that.
the market. It's not your requirements.
And
Yeah,
there's
it's
no
us.
bad intent. It just if you're not getting candidates to the on-site, something's broken in the recruiting side.
Yeah.
And we had just started using Gem Insights, and so we were able to show the hiring manager like this funnel of like, here's how many applicants, here's how many we reviewed, here's how many talked to the hiring manager.
Yes.
And then we saw this crazy drop-off rate at the on-site stage. And so from hiring manager to case study to on-site, there was this massive drop-off. And so it actually wasn't necessarily it wasn't happening at the recruiter stage. It was happening later down the process. And so, but unless you have that data and it doesn't live in spreadsheets, because it's really hard to visually make it appealing.
Right.
But being able to pull, exactly which chart I'm talking about.
Yep.
Being able to pull that and show that to the hiring managers and actually say, actually, here's the stage, and let's dive into that stage. And what we realized is, it's true that it was taking too long. The case study was too hard. It was not consolidated with the on-site. And so people were like, you're going to make me go through this hoop and then do an on-site? No. And so we ended up consolidating and piloting a few different processes. And then all of a sudden it was like an unlock, and we were able to get candidates to the on-site stage, get candidates into, the offer stage. So it's things like that. And, to your point, there's so many different parts of Gem, but that insights piece, I think, is making recruiters not only more efficient, but just like be able to work smarter and lead with data and influence their hiring managers based on that.
Well, turning that around though, too, can you also show the hiring manager the time that they took in the process to help them say, look, I understand. We want to squeeze this a little bit more, but your portion, can we work on that as well? Because I think it's a team effort, right? They don't understand. If you have the insights, that's beautiful. And are the insights something that can be generated like right off of like the historical data. If it's something that you've hired for before that you understand, this might be a long, and here's the drop off rate, those types of things.
Totally, yeah. And so the way the insights work, and I know exactly which chart you're talking about, that's our like pipeline analytics report. The cool thing about GEM is we can take all the data at the top of the funnel from your sourcing, your CRM, your talent marketing efforts, any of the different GEM products that you're using, and then marry that with the data from your ATS, whether you're using GEM ATS or Greenhouse in your case at both of your previous roles. And we can take all of the conversion rates from your recruiting funnel, combine that with your sourcing efforts, your recruiting event strategy, your branded emails, and piece together a full funnel.
Everybody wins at GEM.
Looks like there was
Gemstones for everybody.
Somebody just won some headphones back there. That is cool.
Everybody.
This is why I love doing this stuff live. It's so fun. But yeah,
I thought that was people getting excited about GEM Analytics.
We'll take it. Yeah, the GEM Analytics. There it is. The cool thing about this, though, is it democratizes data. Right? Previously, you either had to track this stuff in spreadsheets, or you had to like talk to somebody on recruiting ops or the people analytics team
just to get the data.
Just to get the data.
Yes.
Now, a recruiting manager or even an individual recruiter and sourcer can pull up their funnel and they can bring it to their hiring manager and they can have an educated conversation. And you get out of this game of like pointing fingers and guessing to like,
it's just
hey,
all there.
It's right there.
I think the adoption piece is something important too. Like, we've all worked for companies and had tools that a company onboards, and they do a quick little training and they send some sort of instruction guide, and then you're expected to go at it. And so we did that in 2019 with GEM, and we did a very lightweight introduction, and all of a sudden we were like, well, there's only a couple of recruiters that are actually using it. And so you have this question of like, okay, is it the system or is it us? Did we do it the wrong way?
Yeah.
And I wasn't ready to kind of hang my hat up on GEM, and so we decided to relaunch it. And we knew that we actually wanted to use it more, so we leaned into it quite a bit, and really made sure that all the recruiters knew where to go, how to use the system, but more importantly, like why. And the why is, if you're going into a meeting with your hiring manager and they're asking you these questions, you should be able to answer them. They shouldn't come to me. They shouldn't have to, go to the top. Every recruiter should have this at their disposal.
Yeah.
And so doing that training, and you guys did a great job of partnering with us, and we're doing ongoing trainings. Well, maybe not we anymore, but Instacart continues to do ongoing trainings to make sure that all the product releases that GEM is doing, Instacart and whatever other company it can actually take advantage of.
Yeah.
Because otherwise the product knowledge gets stale and you end up only using the tools that you know about or the features that you know about. But as we talked about, innovation, things are moving very quickly. And so kind of having this continuous partnership and continuous training is really helpful.
Totally. And there's so many new things coming out, but there's also so many new recruiters that join the team over time. And so that's why we always love to show up as an extension of the team. And I think you nailed it on the head. Like, adoption, having a good product is only half the battle. The other half of the battle is like, how do you get people enabled? How do you do the change management? Especially if you're adopting something really powerful, it's a new way of working. And so, especially with our larger customers, but also for folks that maybe haven't used sourcing automation, haven't used a CRM yet, haven't had like data at their fingertips before, maybe, and especially with this new wave of AI, where every recruiter is trying to learn how to become AI fluent and how to use AI, how to prompt well, that kind of stuff. That's where we like to show up as like a strategic partner.
Steve, this one's for you. I know you talk to your customers a lot, intimately. We're taping this at the beginning of May, so I don't want to hold you to anything from future perspective, but the geopolitical scene is pretty volatile right now. Tariffs, people worried about empty shelves, et cetera. It's no secret. Are you hearing from your clients a lot of concern or changes in their behavior at this point with how they do business?
Great question. It's impacting some in really obvious ways. Take Wayfair, for example. They import 95% of their furniture from overseas. And so, some companies are just in a really tough space. I think it's especially impacting larger enterprise companies. they tend to just do more global business. And so those folks are already seeing an impact. For your average like mid-market tech company, for like an AI startup, those folks are all pretty much business as usual. But we'll see. Like a lot of that depends on how this develops over the next year. If there continues to be more unpredictability with like the tariff situation, with the geopolitical situation, you could see us enter a recession, and then now there's going to be trickle-down effects to every company, because every B2B SaaS company that sells to enterprise companies that do business overseas, they're going to see less sales. They're going to have to slow down their headcount and stuff like that. So, really hard to see how this stuff shakes out. There's the really obvious first order effects for a company like Wayfair, for anybody that's doing a lot of importing. But then there's the second order effects, and those are like way, way harder to predict.
How about Walgreens? Are they worried about empty shelves? Obviously, pharmaceuticals, like anything from Walgreens that you're hearing?
I haven't caught up with Walgreens about this personally, but thinking from first principles, that is a little bit uncertain.
Yeah. Doesn't impact you at all, I assume, from where you said.
I think the theme is efficiency. Like no matter what happens, I think teams are just continuing to focus on how do you get the most bang for your buck. And whatever happens, I think that continues. That has been the trend for the last 2 years, 3 years, and will continue to. And so I think that's like, if you just focus on that, you're almost immune to a lot of things that are happening around you.
Yeah, totally. I mean, we saw this 2.5 years ago when hiring really slowed down. We saw this when COVID first hit and everybody froze hiring. A lot of layoffs happened. Right. And the name of the game for both of these hiring slowdown cycles was efficiency. But the other thing that really accelerated was consolidation. I think that folks realized, first of all, you can save 30 to 50% on your stack by consolidating more things. But now I think a lot of people are really bought into the vision that an all-in-one consolidated stack is just better, because your recruiters only have to learn one system instead of like 9 or 10 different tools. They don't have to jump and swivel between 10 different tools to do their job every day. So you actually get efficiencies by streamlining all that. You get better data because everything's fully integrated. To our conversation about data earlier, you get the most complete source of truth when everything's under one roof. That gives you better analytics, but it also gives you better AI. And so for folks that are trying to leverage AI, the really interesting piece, the hard part about AI is no longer the algorithm. OpenAI, Anthropic, like they've kind of solved that with their new foundational models. Yeah. The hard part is, what context does the AI have? What data does it have access to?
Data.
Right? And so for really like simple example, if you were going to use an AI sourcing bot to automate some of your sourcing, you wouldn't want it reaching out to somebody that your team was already in contact with 2 months ago. You wouldn't want it reaching out to somebody that was rejected in your ATS 7 months ago. And what you would want it doing is, if somebody attended a recruiting event, or if you met them on campus 3 years ago, or if they had a great conversation with a hiring manager 15 months ago, you'd want it to reference that in the reach out and offer a hyper-personalized approach. Uh-huh. And so where I see this stuff headed, whether there's an upmarket, recruiting teams are hiring like crazy, or a down market where everybody's slowing down, looking to get more efficient, looking to consolidate, is towards AI first, all in one. And that's where we're positioning GEM in the market.
So when it comes down to all of this, right, it seems like there are two schools of thought, and there always are. One platform to rule them all, and then just having a very integratable solution, right? And it seems like agents are everywhere, right? Agents are everywhere, and it seems like there are good point solutions that could prospectively integrate and kind of help, instead of you trying to be everything to everybody, to try to pull in some point solutions. Is that kind of like part of the partnership ecosystem that you guys are building? And for you, how important is that for the organization to know that, hey, look, the system that we're using is adaptable?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think there's pros and cons. I think that if you're stitching together 10, 15 different tools that don't talk to each other super well, that's not a great status quo. And that's why I think consolidation is really appealing to people. Now, with GEM, we never want to be building a product that isn't the very best, right? And so our take is to focus on the most important things and do them really well, so that companies don't have to choose between like a subpar product and an all-in-one.
Right.
But then partner with leading players for other parts of the stack that we don't do. For example, I think really highly of the call intelligence space, companies like RideHire and MetaView that are doing call intelligence and transcription of interview notes. It just saves you so much time. And we don't have that.
Right.
We partner, we integrate. We're always going to integrate with any player in the stack. And so even though we have scheduling automation as part of our platform, if you prefer GoodTime or Modern Loop, you can plug that into Gem ATS.
Gotcha.
No problem. They already integrate. We just think things will work a little bit better together if you use everything from Gem. It's kind of like Apple. You can pair an Apple headphone to an Android phone, and you can kind of pair these devices, but they just work a little bit better if you use the
Same
Sort of Spotify
Apple
versus
ecosystem.
Apple Music, right? This works a little bit better with Apple products, Apple Music.
Although Spotify is better, so
Yes.
But does
That's
it
why you
integrate
need a
better?
RideHire or
But does it
MetaView.
integrate better?
doesn't-
I can't interact with Siri and ask it to play songs on Spotify.
Oh, you
I?
can't?
I
Oh,
don't
you
think
should
so.
have a droid then.
But
I guess we just
here
all
we
do
go.
Because
the
mine
Androids.
does. Thank you. Alma, for you, the most important piece, how is it? We keep hearing about the slimming of the stack because it just keeps growing and growing and growing. How important is that for you guys? How often do you reassess the stack in the process? And then also the nimble question.
You're not
how
making a comment
important?
about my weight, are you? Slimming of the stack? No, just you're very passive aggressive.
I didn't know that you would catch on to
All
that, but kind of. But any of the slimming of the stack, less cheeseburgers, is that important? Have you guys focused on that? And then also, how often do you reassess?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I reassess every year just because you have to. You know, you're looking at your budgets, you're looking at your team, you're really trying to figure out like what's the best path forward. And I think you're doing it right. For different reasons, companies may not be able to just go all in, right? They might be embedded with a system already that they've used for many years, and it's hard for them to come off of that. They might not have the resources. They might have a long-term contract that is hard to get out of.
They might be forced to use Workday.
They might be forced to use whatever.
Yep.
And so, not limiting yourself to saying, no, you only have to do all Gem or nothing. I think allows you to be great partners to, whatever clients' needs are, but you also are a subject matter expert and a leader in a lot of these different other components. And so it allows customers to still sign on with you for those things. And I think, as I think about myself and all the other leaders that I talk to, like that is important, that flexibility, the being nimble and being able to kind of pick and choose what you need for this moment, for your budget, for your team's needs is what we're all looking for. We all obviously want something that consolidates everything. That would certainly be the best path forward, but it's not always a perfect world. And maybe eventually, right, as we continue to add on different product and as I talked about training our teams on different features, ultimately that's the goal. But I don't know that we're like trying to get there as quickly as possible and really just solving for what the team needs are today.
I think that's really key, and that's actually one of the differentiated approaches that we take at Gem. Is we're the only all-in-one recruiting platform that can meet you where you are today. We're the only all-in-one that can be your ATS or can sit alongside your ATS, and that's really important. I mean, because think about like an ATS migration. That's already such a huge lift. If you're talking about ripping out your entire stack and doing that at the same time,
and onboarding, something new, that's
like
a big undertaking.
Huge undertaking. And so one of the cool things about Gem is you can get started with sourcing, CRM, analytics, like we were just talking about. You can layer on scheduling automation, maybe some of the talent marketing. You can use some of the AI products. And then now the team is like using the full power of Gem alongside their ATS. We flip a switch and now you're on the ATS. And like the change management for that piece is so much lower because you're already using Gem across the entire recruiting team for all these other workflows.
I'm hearing that.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think to add to that is companies may not even realize that certain tools do these things. So I'll give you an example. Last year, we went on this whole journey of looking for a sourcing tool. And frankly, we just didn't even know that Gem does it. And so going through that exploration, looking at all the tools, and then Gem saying, oh, we do this as well. It allows you to really understand what the market and compare. And again, like pick the right the right product for you. And of course, Gem made a lot of sense because we were using it. It solved all of our problems, but it's like hard to just say, well, I'm only going to choose Gem because this gives you a bigger picture to and make a more educated guess.
So hearing a lot of analytics, data, statistics, et cetera, from you. And what we've heard from a lot of recruiters and TA professionals is in order to get that seat at the table where our opinion matters and we can evoke change, data is paramount. Proof. Not just how I feel, this is what's happening.
Yeah.
So I'm curious in terms of when you build these products, is that part of what you want to deliver to your clients? Like, here's a story through data that you can show your C-suite to get things done. And for you, are you using such data to go to the table and get things done? You're nodding your head yes.
So I'm actually going to let Alla answer that because I think the work she did at Instacart is like a prime example of how to do this well.
Nice.
Yeah. So I talked about it earlier in the session today, but I used to wake up in the morning and like have this pit in my stomach that I was going to get some sort of a ping, and I would get a ping, and it would be anything from hiring managers asking me, hey, how's a certain role going? How's that pipeline looking? Or, hey, the recruiting team isn't going fast enough. Do you have any data for, pipeline analytics or what we have? And in order for me to get that data previously, it would be a combination of pulling a report from our ATS, looking at various manual trackers, and then downloading some information from the recruiters' heads that was pretty anecdotal. Yeah. And it would literally take me hours, days, weeks, nights, weekends to pull this data together. And I'd cross my fingers that it would actually be somewhat correct. And so we spent a lot of time at Instacart trying to figure out how to automate this. And we started the partnership with Gem in 2019. And that was a big part of it, is this analytics, the insights. How do you pull all the information together from, as Steve mentioned, your sourcing efforts, your ATS, everything that you're doing? How do you pull that into one source of truth and actually be able to get data that is, first of all, at your fingertips, isn't outdated on a daily basis, and isn't just for me to use? I think that was the part that was really important. Is, yes, I want the data to be able to these questions, but how do I enable the team to have access to this data as well, to understand where to pull it from, how to slice it and dice it, and be able to actually proactively provide that to their managers. And so we built great dashboards that included everything from time to fill, level of hires, broken down by every which way you can think of, whether it was tech versus non-tech. And then recruiters can slice and dice it for their specific teams, for their specific roles, for their specific functions. And that became our format for all of the monthly business reviews, the quarterly business reviews. And it took that pit out of my stomach, but the recruiters were much more educated, much more able to influence with data and actually show, much easier sort of the narrative behind the work they were doing.
Yeah, I love that. At Gem, we talk a lot about democratizing data, so putting it in the hands of recruiting managers, rec ops. We also talk a lot about elevating the function and helping our customers show up as strategic partners to the rest of the organization. And it was really cool to get to partner with you all on that.
So let's talk about the future for a second. I know at Gem you have a roadmap of what you want to build. Alla, I know you have a wish list of what you want to see companies build. I'll let you pick who goes first, but I want to know what the future looks like, or what we hope the future looks like.
Maybe I'll start, and then you can say if that's on your roadmap or not.
Actually, take notes, Steve.
I mean, the notion, we talked about efficiency.
We got a recording. It's okay. We got it.
We talked about efficiency. We talked, one-stop shop for all. If we can get those right over the next few years, I think we're going to be in a really good. I think Gem is going to be in a good position, but I think recruiting teams are going to be in a place where they're not having to chase all of this information. They're not having to demo so many different products. They're able to just trust one partner and really hit all of the different challenges that they have and solve them. So that's, it's a little bit high level, but there are still a lot of systems that we're working with, and it would be great to consolidate.
Amazing. That's music to my ears. I mean, at Gem, we're building the only AI-first all-in-one recruiting platform. And so the newest things that I'm most excited about, the ATS, it's coming along super quickly. We already have hundreds of customers. But that's a big part of our roadmap because we're bringing it up market really quickly. Today, it is in general availability for companies of up to 1,000 customers. But we actually have an upmarket ATS design partner program with 15 incredible brands that you would all recognize. I'm not allowed to talk about them publicly yet, but they're on a multi-year journey with us, have pre-purchased.
I think he's talking about OnlyFans, Chad. I think OnlyFans is going to be the
OnlyFans?
client.
It's pretty big. It's pretty big.
Fingers crossed.
All of them are migrating in the next year as we continue to build out the enterprise readiness requirements for companies of up to 3,000 and then up to 10,000. And so I'm really excited about that. I'm also really excited about the new AI products. We talked about AI app review. We talked about AI sourcing. Those two are in the product today. We're making tons of improvements in terms of analytics. We talked about data on top of your hiring funnel and on top of your top of funnel. We're also adding talent insights on top of public market data to round out that picture. And then on the AI side, we're adding in the next month or two, we're adding rediscovery. So imagine this.
There we go.
Boom. You can set up your AI search.
Yes.
It starts ranking your inbound. You get it calibrated. Now it goes to work on top of your ATS and your CRM to surface all of the folks that have already raised their hand. And then that same AI that you've already calibrated goes to work externally to start shortlisting 100, 200 people a week. And that is, I think, the true power of an AI-first all-in-one recruiting platform.
Yeah.
The AI works better together, and it works across all of your different channels.
Did you guys have fun?
Yeah.
This was great.
Cool. That was the warm-up. We're going to do it for real now. You good?
As long as I can do it from my
Guys,
flight.
we are live from the Jim booth at Unleash. That is Steve Bartel with Jim. That is Alla Mezhvinsky with Glean. Chad, another one in the can. We out.
Thank you for listening to, what's it called? A podcast. The Chad. The Cheese. Brilliant. They talk about recruiting. They talk about technology. But most of all, they talk about nothing. Just a lot of shout-outs of people you don't even know. And yet you're listening. It's incredible. And not one word about cheese. Not one. Cheddar. Blue. Nacho. Pepper jack. Swiss. There's so many cheeses and not one word. So weird. Anywho, be sure to subscribe today on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, or wherever you listen to your podcasts. That way you won't miss an episode. And while you're at it, visit www.chadcheese.com. Just don't expect to find any recipes for grilled cheese. It's so weird. We out!